All right, let's talk Seattle Seahawks. As we work our way closer to the beginning of the new league year in the offseason, a lot of question marks involving Seattle. Some of their players have been linked to potential trade destinations. Obviously, the Seahawks team is talented. What's going to happen with their new offensive coordinator, new approach? But one position of interest is obviously the quarterback position. Geno Smith is currently the starter. He's the number one salary cap hit on the Seahawks contract situations. But there's some interesting updates that have just kind of happened over the past few days. Super Bowl kind of buried a few of them, but I think it speaks to some potential outcomes affecting really the long term of the Seahawks franchise. And we've got an update on that. But first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, let's jump right into these. We got two separate reports, and kind of if you read between the lines, you can see there may be a key direction here the Seattle Seahawks are focusing. Let's go with this first report. They're both from SI.com, and this is courtesy on Mike McDonald interview. Pay close attention to what he says here. Seahawks coach Mike McDonald has given veteran quarterback Geno Smith another strong endorsement, and this time he didn't just say he wants Smith to remain the team starter in 2025. McDonald said, Geno's our quarterback. I don't understand the conversation. It's pretty obvious this guy's a heck of a quarterback. He's our quarterback. We love him. Can't wait to go work with him, right? This was the strongest statement Mike McDonald has given support of Geno Smith for him to be the Seahawks quarterback in 2025. That's the interesting thing because now we're seeing more and more reports, more and more analysis, more and more mock drafts coming out and linking the Seattle Seahawks to take a quarterback in the first round. Let's pull up this next report. This is also from SI.com. Vinny Iyer at the Sporting News said this in his latest mock draft. One name you won't see in the top 10 is that of Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, who takes a tumble in this mock all the way down to 18, where he lands in the laps of John Schneider, Mike McDonald, and the Seattle Seahawks. This mock draft from Sporting News is far from the first. There's been a ton of reports linking Seattle to Shedeur Sanders. There's been other reports linking to Seattle to potentially other quarterbacks falling in the later part of the first round. To me, this just makes so much sense. If you look at what Mike McDonald and what the Seahawks have been saying, they love Geno Smith to be their starter in 2025, but they haven't talked about the future. This reeks so much of what we've seen in prior years where teams love a veteran in the short term and then draft a long-term replacement. It seems it's where the Seattle Seahawks are likely headed. Miles, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this new development for Seattle. But first, Seahawks fans, in the comment section below, what do you think the Seattle Seahawks should do at the quarterback position? Do you think they should stick with Geno Smith medium and long term and address other holes on their roster? Do you think they should go Geno Smith short term, rookie quarterback long term, or maybe a completely different approach? Give us your thoughts on the Seattle quarterback position in the comment section below. But Mize, your turn. What are your thoughts on just everything with the Seahawks right now?
Yeah, Nick, I think as we've seen the NFL progress and as we've seen things happen in the last couple of years, the model of having your quarterback of the now and then drafting the quarterback of the future and not necessarily going into the draft like a lot of these teams do. Like, let's take, for instance, like the Bears did last year with drafting Caleb Williams and making Caleb Williams, okay, he's the future right now. We're going to draft him and immediately play him. It doesn't really work that well. We've seen much, much more success of drafting the quarterback of the future while you have your now quarterback on the roster, aka Geno Smith and Shedeur Sanders, or whoever it might be in the mock. Doesn't necessarily have to be Sanders, but drafting a quarterback here. I think that is the interesting part here, and that's what makes the most sense. Because Mike McDonald, he comes from a franchise that did just that in the Baltimore Ravens, had Joe Flacco, Super Bowl MVP. The guy had some really good seasons under his belt. He was their quarterback of the now. The opportunity, and that's, I think, then key here in these mocks, is the opportunity for them to get their QB of the future falls into the lap. Seattle would draft them, just like the opportunity came to Baltimore in the form of Lamar Jackson. Quarterback fell into their lap. They couldn't pass it up. They draft their quarterback of the future, and I think that is the key here. Seattle, Mike McDonald, he knows, he's seen what happened. We've seen this happen other times as well. Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love worked out really good. Jordan Love looks really good because of this treatment as well. I think this is the key here. Geno Smith is the quarterback of the now, the 2025 season. But I wouldn't count out, like these mocks are pointing to, like you said, reading in between the lines, that the Seattle Seahawks are looking for a QB of the future to bring in behind Geno Smith to develop, to cultivate a guy, bring him up, and not have to thrust him in to the NFL play and make that jump in his very first year. I think this is the best idea, the smartest idea that Seattle has as far as quarterback development. And I would really like it if they would do this. I'd feel good about the direction of this team if they go ahead and get Geno Smith replacement on the roster.
Yeah, you have to have a succession plan, right? Teams that don't have a succession plan, they end up in a really bad situation where they end up reaching for quarterbacks or they end up not having a long-term answer despite having a talented team. The Pittsburgh Steelers are a great example of this. That's obviously a playoff defense with a lot of superstars, some great playmakers, solid offensive line, but the quarterback position ever since Roethlisberger retired has just been a disaster in Pittsburgh because they didn't have a succession plan. If you look at the teams in the Super Bowl, you look at the Kansas City Chiefs, they had Alex Smith winning seasons, right? Not too dissimilar to the Seattle Seahawks. They find their guy in Mahomes, they trade up and get him. The rest is history. The Philadelphia Eagles had Carson Wentz. He was a top 5 quarterback. They went all in on him for a period of time. Jalen Hurts fell to them at the end of the second round one draft. They went and picked him up. The rest is history. He's taken them to 2 Super Bowls. Now he's won 1. If you take a step back and look at the teams in the conference championship games, you look at the Washington Commanders, right? They had a lot of holes to fix. They were a team that had a lot of question marks. They went out and got their quarterback. They played him right away, but I think that's just because Jane Daniels was just ready to do it. Obviously, they had a really nice season. The Buffalo Bills and Josh Allen, they drafted him at first round top 10 pick. He wasn't ready. That's fine. They had a veteran in Tyrod Taylor they rolled with for a little while before Josh Allen was ready. This is the recipe for success in the NFL. You make sure you have a succession plan in place. You have your franchise quarterback on the roster, young, talented, ready to go at all times. If he's 100% ready, like Jane Daniels, you roll with it and you let things magical happen. If he needs a little time to develop, Mahomes, Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, perfectly fine. That's why you have a veteran like Geno Smith. We know who Geno Smith is. He's a very good quarterback. He gets the job done. He takes you to the playoffs. He did that one time, of course, or he gets you very close. He's done that twice, winning seasons. That's phenomenal. That's outstanding. We love that. A lot better than 2/3 of the NFL. But if your goal is championships and deep playoff runs, you can't just be very good. You can't just be steady. You can't just be a very good leader. You have to be elite. You have to be all pro caliber. The best teams in the NFL have all pro caliber quarterbacks. Ravens, Bills, Chiefs. The one exception may be the Philadelphia Eagles, and they have just a super roster. But even Jalen Hurts, he was an MVP candidate a couple years ago, right? He's a sort of an underrated asset at the quarterback position. You need to have a young, talented guy who can get you where you need to go above the rest of the competition. And right now, Geno Smith, as great as he isn't that guy. You need to put a succession plan in place. Geno Smith probably will take you to the playoffs next year. I think the Seattle Seahawks are a wild card caliber team. Maybe they win the division. But the reality is, if you're trying to go for Super Bowls, you need to focus on finding that elite guy. And I think that's what the Seahawks are going to do this offseason. Geno Smith is a short-term answer. A guy like Shedeur Sanders or whoever else is a long-term answer. And I think we're going to see more and more reports pointing that the Seattle Seahawks are heading in that direction.